Welcome back to the Shootaround Podcast. My name is Josh.
I'm Mackenzie.
And this is episode 3, where we will talk about the West and the teams that may challenge the Lakers, if at all.
This is our run through of the West. Basically, we feel like the Lakers are gonna just do it again, but there are some teams that are threatening.
Yeah,
and we want to run through those.
If you don't feel like that's the case, just let us know, because I don't think there's anyone who would feel like there's other teams in the West who can challenge the Lakers right now. Their roster's ridiculous compared to every other team.
It is, yeah.
So
to that point, we'd love to hear your opinion on what we're about to talk about.
100%.
Let us know who you feel is the strongest candidate to actually challenge the Lakers, if not beat them this year. Yeah. It does feel like the Lakers are repeating, but it's super early. So let's hear your thoughts. You can hit us up on Facebook at /TheShootaroundPod, Twitter at ShootaroundPod, Instagram at ShootaroundPod, and TikTok at ShootaroundNBAPod. So hit us up, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So we wanted to actually start with something aside from the West. There's been a handful of teams that have announced basically that they are not going to be hosting any fans for the start of the season. It's a little bit complicated to get into every single team, but we wanted to have a broad conversation on what we thought. Like, how can you put stock into the bubble and how teams performed versus just a regular season and a regular playoffs if there were fans there? What are your thoughts, Josh?
I think beyond the playoffs, there's not too much difference between what we saw in the bubble and what we would have seen throughout the season. There weren't a lot of shock results.
Right.
There wasn't a lot that happened before the playoffs started. I think the most interesting thing was the way the Phoenix Suns played, but I don't think that has anything to do with the crowds. I think Phoenix were just in a zone. It all happened at the right time.
Yeah.
They all merged and sort of morphed into this incredible
juggernaut
NBA team.
They had good motivation as well, because there was they had a play-in situation basically, and every team was fighting to get into the playoffs.
Yeah. In
a more dramatic fashion than normal.
Yeah.
So that obviously influenced how they played.
Definitely.
Obviously other teams as well. They didn't make it, which was unbelievable. 8-0 in the bubble, and they still missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Say what you want about that. I'm happy that Portland made it, but nonetheless, Phoenix deserved to make it as well.
Yeah.
Both can be true.
Yeah.
Portland and Phoenix deserved to make it, but only one team prevailed. But basically, like, just in a broader sense, I feel like when you have a bubble, in the playoffs, the fans are crucial. Like, absolutely.
100%.
It's such a major part of the game. I think of teams like my Raptors, even the Celtics. Milwaukee has a really good home court advantage. When you take that out of the equation, you could argue that the better team wins because it's just pure basketball in some sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's just the way the league has been for so many years. There's never been anything like this, a pandemic of this magnitude that's affected the world like this. There have been other pandemics, but in terms of the NBA, there's been no effect like this in recent memory. So, like, the fans not being there would have affected a lot of players. I'm sure there's players that they get the juice from the crowd reactions.
I think the other way around too. Like, you saw players like Jamal Murray and TJ Warren who had good seasons.
Yeah.
And then they come into the bubble where there's no crowd, there's no outside noise, literally, and they're able to perform at a whole other level.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you can put into that Boston-Miami series.
It's really tough.
It is.
Both teams. Because you think about, like, a game, like Game 6 would have been in Miami. No, it would have been in Miami because Boston was a higher seed.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
I mean, they won Game 6.
Yeah.
But they lost Game 5. No, sorry. I have it all mixed up. The home court advantage, just suffice to say, would have made a big difference in that series in particular. I feel like the Raptors may have been able to pull out a win against Boston not just speaking as a homer,
In the
if they
same-
had home court, because the Raptors' home court advantage is one of the best in the league. It has been for years, even if it hasn't resulted in wins necessarily. But the crowd is so amped in Toronto.
Yeah.
And, Jurassic Park is second to none. So stuff like that really makes a difference. And also just the fan experience. Like, you can't – the Lakers winning a championship, imagine being able to celebrate that in Los Angeles if they wouldn't have – again, the series in the finals is affected by multiple things. Maybe the series doesn't go to 6. The Lakers win in 5 in Los Angeles. They get to celebrate. I just think it's such a big part of it. And, there's other things too, like the bubble having no travel. You're walking around the bubble, seeing the same people.
Yeah.
Reportedly, anyway, I wasn't there, unfortunately. But just seeing the opponents, even the players and teams that you're playing in that very series at the time, it's got to be a bit weird and jarring. You get in the elevator with someone that you're competing against. You're like, hey, how you doing?
I think at the end of the day, though, like, I guess it's like us on court, and this is really, this is wild. But you go from, you're playing in a competitive situation where, you're so caught up in the situation that's happening right in front of you that once it ends, it's just a game. It's just sport.
Yeah. No, it's bigger than basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
when they finish that game, once the final buzzer sounds, they're just people. They're literally just guys that know each other very well because they're all in the same space. The NBA is so small.
It's a tight-knit community. It might not seem like that because it's a global sport, but you're right.
It is so small. Everyone knows everyone. And I think
that's right.
When you get down to the bubble and the situation that they were in there, the teams that were there at the end of the day are the teams that treated the bubble like business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Miami said. Jimmy Butler
came out and said that my family's not coming here because I'm working.
It's a business trip, he
I'm
said.
here to work. And the teams that treated the bubble as work and as a business situation.
As a job. Doing their job.
Exactly. They were just doing their job. They were just out there playing basketball, going back to their hotel. They were on the road the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much stock you can put into teams performing in the playoffs, in the bubble playoffs, the bubble-offs. But, it just is what it is. I don't think there's more you can really put into it other than those guys were just out there playing basketball. It just
pure
felt...
basketball.
I liked it. Personally,
no, it was great.
The finals didn't feel like the finals. That's the only thing I can take away from that bubble situation. But everything else leading into it, the playoffs, the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals were competitive, and they felt very competitive. They felt, like playoff games.
Yeah.
But then I think when you get to the finals, you want it to be a bigger occasion.
It's a celebration of the sport, really.
Yeah.
The two top teams, the ultimate in competition, that sort of thing. I understand exactly what you mean. It felt underwhelming.
It was disappointing coming off such an amazing final series the year before, where there was just so much. It was such a roller coaster series.
Exactly. Think of the
Raptors Warriors.
The difference between the two of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump away from the mic. The difference between the two of them, you had the Warriors and the Raptors, two of the best home court advantages you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then completely eliminated for Miami Lakers. That would have been a great Lakers fans, Heat fans.
Yeah.
It would have been an awesome atmosphere.
Two of the most storied franchises. I mean, Heat way newer.
Championship wise.
Way newer, but
they are. I agree.
Very traditional franchises. They have a very large fan base. They're both big market teams. It would have been an amazing series going from the East Coast to the West and all the way east, all the way west.
Yeah.
It would have been a really nice series to see in their respective home courts. I wasn't disappointed by the series. I just thought that it was missing that element of
you can't really
that
avoid
exposure.
That.
Yeah, and I was
true.
also upset that they were missing, Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic. So, they weren't playing their best.
I know.
Goran missed most of the series. Bam wasn't 100%. So
he was probably operating at 90, probably maybe
not
95.
Even. I don't even think he was there.
No,
no. We didn't see Bam Adebayo in that final series.
The guy that was doing work in the Celtics series definitely didn't.
No, man.
Understandably so, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is, at the end of the day, we saw the two best teams in the finals.
Yeah,
and that's something you have to say we did, because the Bucks weren't going to get there. They wouldn't have got through the Celtics. They didn't get through the Heat. So the Bucks were not built for the playoffs. They're built for regular season wins, which they do very well.
At this stage, yeah, that's what it would seem like.
But out west, you have to say that the Lakers are the only team that are a book for the playoffs and then the finals.
Yeah.
I think they're the only ones you can say safe getting into the final series with the amount of competitive teams out west. And every year, there's always a team that just comes from absolutely nowhere that you're like, how did they get
win
good?
A series or something like that?
Correct. Yeah. And the only team I see 100% making the playoffs minimum, making the finals very high percentage, are the Lakers.
Yeah. And that's part of why we just think we're just going to talk about who's going to challenge the Lakers. The Lakers seem like the runaway favorites. And we just want to talk a bit about some of the interesting situations in the West. There's been a lot of shifting of rosters and players moving around a little bit. The first team I think we should talk about is probably the Dallas Mavericks. They made some shrewd moves this offseason.
Yeah.
They've kept their core together in the bubble, and towards the end of the regular season, they had some key injuries. They missed Dwight Powell, great forward/center, and they also were missing, I believe they were missing their, no, that was it for top of my memory. They were missing Porzingis a bit in the Clippers series.
Yeah, they did. They did miss Porzingis for 4 games, I think.
So 2 of their starting front court were out.
Yep.
Obviously unfortunate, but they should come back healthy and ready to go.
Yep.
I mean, what else needs to be said about Luka Doncic? First of all, the guy's a stud.
MVP.
He's my pick.
Yeah.
30, 10, and 10 almost last year, which is unreal.
Incredible.
At 21 years old, I believe.
It's ridiculous.
Just a basketball acumen that is virtually unmatched at this age.
Yeah.
The only player I can think to compare him to in terms of the ability to control the game and everyone's actions around him would be LeBron when he was a young pup in the Cavaliers jersey. But Luka's great. I think he'll win MVP. He was my pick last episode.
Yeah.
If Porzingis is healthy, I think they're the top challenger to the Lakers.
Yeah.
They played them pretty well in the regular season last season.
They did. They're a pretty good matchup across the court, I think.
Well, they have no one's going to guard Doncic, first of all. Doncic is going to do his thing. We saw that in the Clippers series. Maybe the Clippers didn't give their best effort, but they have Kawhi, Paul George. No one can stop him.
They put
at all.
Everyone had to go.
And he's not like lightning quick.
No.
He's not, jumping out of the
gym.
He
does what he wants.
He just gets to his spot. He's strong.
Can't stop it.
Yeah, so I don't see the Lakers finding any answers for him, but it would be an interesting matchup. I'd love to see that. Maybe in the conference finals.
I can see that, definitely. Yeah. I can see that. I can see them above every other team in the West being the biggest problem, only on the back of Doncic.
And Porzingis he's due to be like the real second.
Well, he can put up
Robin to Batman.
He can put up those points. He can put in that kind of performance, especially in a playoff game. And I think you're right. We didn't see the best version of Kristaps, and that was due to his injuries. If he can stay healthy for a season and get through a season of NBA basketball, then you're looking at one of the best franchises in the NBA.
Yeah. Great owner. Just a great franchise, yeah.
Fantastic. And yeah, it's got to be said that
the guy they traded for?
The owner.
Oh, Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah. Love me some cubes.
And it's got to be said that Mark Cuban is a huge fan of white European basketballers.
No doubt.
And
white players. He had Steve Nash as well.
Yeah. So. Look, it's paid off that he's invested in the European market.
Yeah.
Especially landing Luka Doncic, trading for Kristaps. They built a very good franchise there. And they've added Josh Richardson as well, which I really like for the backcourt with Luka.
Yep.
Because of his defensive issues. He should improve this year, and he's only 21.
Exactly.
You know,
he's been asked to do a lot on offense, so I can understand him being like, okay, defense.
Yeah.
Carlisle's not going to.
Let me take some plays off, please.
Yeah, exactly. And Carlisle's going to give him that because he's such a brilliant offensive player. We see that a lot with some players, and Doncic is no exception. So
we do see that a lot with Dame. We see it with Steph. I think that point guard role, you take
ball handler,
you shoulder the load, and then you get back on D, and you're like,
I'm spent.
I just need a break. I just need. It's interesting to sit here and have that take, especially for NBA players who you expect being paid that kind of money
to be half decent.
On defense.
I wouldn't even say that Doncic is like a liability on defense, but I would say there's a lot of room for improvement.
He's not good.
The point you
were
making,
not average. So
right, yeah, he's close to average, if not below average at this stage. I would say.
Yeah.
He's got a great basketball mind, so he'll figure it out. I think that Josh Richardson. The point you were making was Josh Richardson was an upgrade over Seth Curry to help defensively. To give Luka less burden on that end.
Yep.
And he's a good player anyway. I don't think he was the right fit for Philly. I think he'll fit really well in Dallas.
Well, he's a spot-up shooter, and the issue with him on that Philly roster is they were lacking a secondary ball handler.
Yeah.
And so they gave that role to Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson put up the second most mid-range jumpers
in
the NBA last season. And I don't like that for Josh. I watched Josh a lot when he was playing for Miami. Josh Richardson, I should give him his last name.
Yeah.
I watched Josh Richardson a lot playing for Miami. And his role was in the corner, switching, and hitting 3-pointers from the corner.
Not doing too much.
No, he didn't have a big role in Miami, but when they called on him, he did his job.
Yeah.
And that's probably a Spoelstra coaching thing.
Part of it.
And I think Rick Carlisle is one of those coaches that can go, okay, this is what you do well. Go out there and do it.
Play to your strengths, exactly. You nailed it. I think he'll fit really well in that team. Being a sidekick to Doncic is good, so that's a good pickup for them. They just have a really, when you look at their roster, they have a great set of players.
Yeah.
Just running down some of them here. We got Maxi Kleber, Tim Hardaway Jr. I do like a lot. He's underrated.
Very underrated.
Dorian Finney-Smith, also underrated. Great role player. Super versatile on defense.
Yeah.
I actually really like that they picked up James Johnson.
I like that too, man.
He was underutilized in his whole career to me until he got to Miami.
Where they put him as a sixth man and they were like, you can run our offense when you're on the floor. And man,
forward.
Unbelievable. Yeah. He's so talented. He has
athletic.
He has such a good skill set across the board that you can't really pick one thing out of his game and go, okay, now do this, because he can give you a lot. And it just depends on how Dallas use him. I can see him being a sixth man for them. They've also got Jalen Brunson, who's another player I really like. I think he's incredibly underrated.
Solid leader.
Man,
his dad was in the NBA.
He's an absolute spark off the bench too.
Yeah.
You bring him on and he runs that offense so clean, and it's just so
professional.
Crisp.
Again, father that used to play in the NBA. Somehow it just works out for them. Another guy I like that had a resurgent season is Trey Burke.
I like Trey Burke.
He was sick. I think he got a little bit overrated coming into the draft. I believe that was 2013 or 2014.
That was a bad draft.
He had a great year at Michigan. He had a huge shot in the tournament that just put him on the map. I think he was already on the map, but he had a resurgent season and really earned his minutes. I don't like that he's about 6 feet tall, and in the NBA you kind of need more. You don't want to be a liability on defense. You can be scrappy, and you can use someone like Fred VanVleet as an example of size. It's not the end of the world if you can make it work with scrappiness and crafty defensive play. Yeah. That's where I'm really concerned with Trey Burke is defensively, but his offense is really good. Great shooter, good decision maker, fits into the Carlisle system as well.
I don't know where he gets minutes on this roster though, and they've given him a pretty good contract. I don't know where he gets minutes.
It's true, they are a bit stacked because they re-signed JJ Barea, who's just the bench. He's like the Udonis Haslem.
You don't have to play JJ.
Nah, He's an assistant coach that sits with the players.
He's
and
a locker room guy.
Exactly.
He's a really good guy to have around your franchise.
That's true. So Trey Burke will play over him, but then you have Jalen Brunson taking minutes. Not taking minutes, but to compete with.
You can't play Jalen Brunson and Trey Burke in your backcourt.
Unless you're playing the Raptors who play Lowry and Van Vliet. That's a scenario you could do. But that's twice a year.
The other team that did do that with Kemba Walker and Brad Wanamaker is Boston Celtics.
I didn't like that lineup, but it is what it is.
Wanamaker's 6'3", so you could argue that he's probably the limit of height for shooting guard. But
you're right. There's a bit of a logjam in the backcourt.
They ran a lot of small ball last year they had Seth Curry, Jalen Brunson, and Luka Doncic on the floor at the same time.
That's right. Sometimes Luka was playing the 4.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Luka occasionally would play the 4. Mostly they used him as the point guard, and then they'd move him to the 3 once those guys came on. I don't like that. I think Luka's your 1, and you've got to keep him there. I think when he's on the court, he has to guard up top. He has to be the guy that's guarding the point guard. He should never be down low trying to battle with a 4. That'll just wear him out.
No, you don't want him at the 4, but I also don't like him at the 1. I think he just plays defense on the guy, basically the worst offensive player on the other team. You have Josh Richardson and Tim Hardaway and all these other guys to take on more important assignments. Yeah. So they can make up for Luka's deficiencies on defense.
There's a lot of defensive worries there. That'd be the only thing for me. Hardaway Jr. is an average defender. He's nothing special. Josh Richardson is the best defender on the roster.
Yeah.
So how many minutes Josh Richardson gets, I don't know. But as far as Dallas's roster, there is a huge logjam at the guard position.
Yeah.
And adding Josh Green to that as well. He's a guy that could get minutes for them. He was their first round pick. Super athletic. Defensively is good, can handle a lot of positions at 6'6". So he's another guy that could end up taking minutes away from the other guys you've just paid.
I think he's a bit...
he's fresh. He's green.
Yeah, that's the word. He's very
green.
Young.
Yeah.
So I don't see him getting the minutes right away. I don't think
he's actually,
to my memory, Carlisle doesn't play a lot of rookies much unless you really trust them. And it's Luka Doncic, who's like transcendent.
Yeah.
The exception to the rule, you could say. But I don't think he'll find minutes. The same with Tyrell Terry, unless there's injuries.
He did play Jalen Brunson a lot last year.
Yeah, but Brunson has a mature game.
Yeah,
he makes sense,
and he's older. He's much older.
Yeah,
for a young, early in his NBA career, he's older.
But with the logjam, I don't see Terry or the Josh Green. I don't see a fit for them necessarily. Okay. But they'll develop. They're a great pickup. Tyrell Terry replaces Curry like 75-85% of Curry's shooting because Tyrell Terry was arguably the best shooter in the draft.
Okay,
so. That's a good pickup.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Mavs, to me, I had the Mavs and the Lakers in the conference finals.
Yep.
The other team that really stands out to me this year in the West to challenge the Lakers is the Nuggets. Not only because they played the Lakers in the conference finals and played them pretty well. It was a very competitive 5-game series, if you ask me.
Yeah. I love that series. Yeah. That was one of my favorites.
Because I was just always curious about how Jokic was going to perform against Howard and McGee and Davis. And Jokic just is unfazed. Like, he's such a cool head to have.
He's just such an unassuming NBA player. Like, you just look at him and you're like, nah.
But
then he gets the ball and damn.
Well, he runs weird and he kind of has weird interactions with the refs.
You watch him, he doesn't look like an NBA player.
No.
He really doesn't. He looks nothing like anyone else in the NBA. You know who Jokic is as soon as he's on that court.
Yeah.
Even off the court, you see him and you're like, oh, okay, he's not part of this whole group.
Exactly.
He's just a guy.
He looks, like, looks-wise, he looks very
plays
pedestrian.
NBA like that too, man. He plays like that. He plays like no one else I've ever seen.
I know.
He just has such a strange style and it works. Like,
it works brilliantly.
Do whatever you want to do. Like, here's the keys. Just go nuts.
He's actually one of the only centers I can think of that. Because a lot of teams like to have, like, you could have a guy like Embiid, who's a dominant big man, but at the end of the game, can you give him the ball and can he just generate buckets for you? It's questionable.
Right.
Jokic like you could put him anywhere, he'll make a play because he has good passing skills. He can dribble the ball in the post. He's very stocky, so he's just going to back you down and get to his spots. We saw that over and over. He's unreal. Him and Doncic stand out as two of the most unique players I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But beyond Jokic, who is an obvious topic you want to cover, Murray had a phenomenal bubble, particularly in the Jazz series where he had, I think, a couple 50-point games. He was going toe-to-toe with Donovan Mitchell, which is no small feat. A lot of people pegged Murray as he was inconsistent during the regular season, so to speak. He averaged 18 a game, I think, but a lot of times he left a lot to be desired, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think there's higher expectations out of him to score more or just be more consistent, and he really showed out in the bubble. And I can see him and Jokic being MVP candidates this season.
Yep.
If the Nuggets are top tier, which I expect them to be, top 3, top 4 for sure.
I think a player to watch this year is Bol. Man, he was a guy coming out of college I thought would go like
High?
top 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, until that injury, I had him top 10. And then he got hurt, and I saw him falling probably just outside the lottery. I didn't see him going in the second round.
Didn't know much about him myself.
I thought it was a really clever pickup by Denver. He was actually drafted by Miami, and they had the rights traded to Denver.
Way to go, Pat Riley.
Yeah, look.
Maybe it worked out. They made the finals.
He's a bit of a flyer. You know, he's not a guy that, you know, you bank on to be a superstar. I think he has that potential, though. He has a really high floor, a really high ceiling, and a low floor. So you've got to be careful with guys like that. But at the same time, the ball handling skills of a guy that's 7'3",
it's weird.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's something that we haven't seen in the NBA.
And he can shoot
before. He can shoot, and from deep, he probably replaces Jeremy Grant like for like as far as catch and shoot ability.
Wow.
So I'm interested to see how much he plugs into their offense this year. He'd be a flyer for Rookie of the Year. He is in contention. He did not play enough for Denver last year, so he is in contention for the Rookie of the Year vote.
Didn't know that.
It's interesting.
Fair.
It's interesting. So he could be a guy to watch. If you have a $5 tip to put on, he'd be one that I would definitely look at. I think he's paying $34. But yeah, anyway, enough
spicy.
tipping. Yeah.
It's funny you bring up Bol because I was going to say I think they might miss Jeremy Grant's versatility on both ends. They also picked up JaMychal Green, which I liked a lot.
I really like that pick.
Yeah.
I think he could be a trade guy halfway through the season too, depending on where Denver are at. I think if Denver are really good, they won't want to let go of a guy like JaMychal Green.
Fair.
He's a guy you can just kind of fit into any spot, and he's like, okay, do your job.
True.
Off you go.
That's true. Now, okay, so to that point, I glossed over Bol. I'm sorry, Bol. But I thought Michael Porter Jr. was going to be the guy.
I really like Michael Porter Jr.
Of course.
In the playoffs, I felt like he became way more comfortable in Denver's offense.
As a focal point.
He seemed to relish being on the floor when the minutes mattered. And that's something he didn't have through the season. And then to get into the playoffs and into the bubble, they were like, we need everyone here to contribute. And he became, he was a focal point for the defense. So it really opened up the floor for Jamal Murray. And that's why we saw that explosion from Jamal.
Yeah.
Having Michael Porter on the floor, his numbers weren't, tremendous. But as far as the effort that the defense had to pay to a guy like that, you got to respect him because he can shoot lights out on the catch and shoot.
6'10".
Yeah.
He's a great athlete.
You got to know
he's
where
fluid.
he is. You got to know where he is on the floor. And it
score.
definitely opened up for Jamal Murray. And Jokic took full advantage of it. His assists went up in the bubble. So, it shows that, having more guys on the floor with that catch and shoot ability made a difference. So I don't think that they'll miss Jeremy Grant. I think Jeremy Grant was just a bit, they were like, ooh, good luck, guys.
We've got other pieces, so you can go your own way.
Yeah.
That's fair, actually. I wish I remembered Bol, but I'm glad you brought him up because now the Nuggets make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you have either Bol or Michael Porter Jr. step into more of a big role there at a decent contract for now, that's a winning situation for them. So I like that. One other thing I wanted to note about them is I think they should move off of either Will Barton or Gary Harris or both.
Be Gary Harris.
He's
I really like Will
Barton.
And Gary Harris really struggled, especially in the bubble. He was
awful.
He was terrible. And that's, Gary Harris was a good NBA player.
Can we talk about him like he's retired?
Yeah.
He was good back in the day, but now he's no good.
He was good last season, the year before, not last season just gone.
2 seasons ago.
2 seasons ago.
He averaged 17
18,
2
19.
seasons ago. Yeah. Actually 17, 18. He averaged 17 and a half. He had played 67 games, which he seems to be injury prone because every other season, say for his second, he played basically 57 games, 56 games. So he's always on the injury reserve, which is unfortunate. It's not necessarily something you can control.
How were his averages last season? What did he
last season? So last season he played 56 games and he averaged 10 points. Damn. So obviously almost a double the amount drop off.
So not even he wasn't even that good 18-19.
No, not that great.
I remember him being a better player in 18-19. I think his defensive contributions were better.
That's the thing. His defense still matters, but I think his offensive, the lack of punch that he provides compared to what he used to provide is really glaring, and that's why I think they move off of him. Maybe package him with Will Barton to make the deal that you want to get more attractive for the other team. Because Will Barton's okay. He's a good scorer, a bit of a spark plug off the bench, most likely.
Yeah.
I don't like him starting because
I agree.
I just don't like him.
I think he's a really good
lineup.
six man. I think he probably fit really well into Milwaukee if they could end up landing a guy like
that's
Will
an interesting point.
Being a six man there, having a spark plug off the bench, he's a guy that can come on and give you 20. Like there's not many guys in the league like that. So Will Barton's a good player, but Gary Harris, you've really got to think about moving on.
I think so as well. But the thing is, his value has plummeted. It's hard to.
They bought in RJ Hampton. They bought in RJ Hampton too. So RJ Hampton, he's a guy that could be six man.
Yeah,
he can play make off the bench, and this is something we talked about in episode 1. His averages in the NBL were not great. He struggled with his jump shot, but he was playing against men, and
he was playing a role on that team. He bought into like a system there, and he's been on the record saying this. Like he went over there to learn and to grow as a player, not necessarily to stand out and be the star prospect.
He absolutely could have done that at the college level, playing against NBA, potentially NBA competition. So we've just seen another couple of guys from the NBL get picked up on 2-way contracts in the NBA. So, man, he's NBA ready. Because he's just come off a season playing against guys that are now there,
Well, the thing is, I like his mentality. Like just listening to him talk about basketball, I'm confident he's going to be successful.
Man. Yeah,
he's got a good support system. He was training with Mike Miller.
Yeah.
So Mike Miller, sniper.
Yeah.
I'm assuming his shooting shouldn't be too far
behind.
White
shooters, man. White shooters.
Something about them.
I don't know what it is.
The other thing with the Nuggets is there was a trade rumor for Bradley Beal, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't think it'll happen. I don't think that Denver's really the destination for a guy like that. They're very similar to the way Jamal Murray plays. A lot of ISO, a lot of dribble, and then then putting up a shot. So I don't think that really works. But if they go that route, good on you, Denver. But
it'd be interesting if that happened. But I don't think Washington. I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's Washington. They're a futile franchise.
Yeah.
But if they trade Beal for Harris and Barton, that's kind of trading $1 for 40 cents.
Yeah, that's a bit of a worry for Washington if they end up.
Might be a bit concerned if that happened.
Yeah. The other guy I wanted to talk about is Isaiah Hartenstein. He's someone that was on the Rockets roster, didn't get a lot of game time, but his stretchability at the 5 is very good. Underrated.
I don't know much about him. I know he played on the Rockets, and he didn't get much burn because they like to play small and what have you.
Yeah, he's a 7-footer. He shoots 33% from three
Okay.
as a 7-footer.
Okay.
And
You're going to have to sell me some more on him.
he's not bad, man. Like,
I mean, I'm not hating on
he
him.
hasn't had a lot of time, and Houston moved away from 7-foot guys about halfway through last season. So I feel like he got shafted a little bit.
A little bit.
But yeah, he's a guy that could come in and put in some minutes for them, and he could be, someone that actually ends up making an impact on that Denver roster. I don't mind that pickup for them, especially with the lack of depth at center.
Yeah.
You've really only got Bol and Jokic. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them plug in Hartenstein every now and then and be like, hey, run the 5 for us.
Okay.
But
That's a mild take. We'll call it a mild
look, it's not a hot take. He's just a guy that I'd keep an eye on this year for the Nuggets. He's someone I think was a good pickup and probably an underrated pickup for them.
Isn't he a German dude? No, he's American. Okay.
No, he's from Oregon. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I was just getting mixed up with the Hartenstein.
But
shout out to Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah.
Josh's sneaky contributor pick
he's
for the
a
Nuggets.
slept on pickup for
I'm
the
sure
Nuggets.
he is, yeah.
He
He just needs an opportunity.
He does. I think the Rockets mishandled that one. But the Rockets have mishandled a lot recently.
Yeah.
So, I'd be interested to see what kind of numbers Hartenstein can put up in a different system and kind of have a bit more freedom to not just give the ball to Harden and then stand back and watch.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Sorry, Houston.
Yeah. Stray shots.
Yeah.
The next team I wanted to chat about was the Clippers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are off their bandwagon, so to speak.
Yep.
For obvious reasons. I mean, they lost.
I was on it and I'm off it.
I was way on it.
Look, blaming Doc Rivers for the Clippers, I don't think does their off-season disappointment justice. I can't blame Doc Rivers for the way that team fell
Not
apart.
entirely, no. Paul George might, but we can't.
Yeah, Paul George came out really hard against Doc Rivers and basically said, it's his fault. Like this whole thing, everything that's happened since I got here,
kind of threw him under the bus.
Is Doc's fault.
Yeah, the bus dragged him for a couple kilometers.
I can't get on board with that.
It doesn't seem fair. There's more to it than that.
Man, there were a lot of reports that came out after him. Being in LA, you're going to get that kind of, feedback and discussion coming out of LA. So the issues that Montrezl Harrell had with Paul George were vocal.
Everybody kind
Lou
of had a
Will,
little bit of a
I
problem.
think, has had a problem with Paul George as well, and he's a guy that fits into every roster and doesn't say a peep. So I have to say that there's more going on in LA Clipperland than what we will ever know.
Most likely.
But I don't really see them being the top team in the West. I don't think they even get close to coming past the Lakers unless they add a point guard, and then it's all about the coaching. And Ty Lue is not a NBA coach that can take you to the finals. So
unless he has LeBron. And that was actually a take I had here.
Yeah,
I want to see what
I
he can
agree.
do without LeBron.
I agree. I'm interested to see what he can do. My take would be that they don't make the finals. I don't think they make the Western Conference finals.
Okay.
I think they get knocked out in the second round.
Quite possible.
And I think it'll probably be at the hands of Luka's Mavericks.
Revenge game.
Yeah.
Revenge series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair take. I think the thing with the Clippers is it's a big high pressure season, make or break type of season.
100%.
Because major implications based on what happens this season. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Serge Ibaka, arguably their three, can leave for nothing.
Yeah.
The Clippers will be left with absolutely zero.
And the amount of assets they gave up.
Oh my God, absurd. The Thunder, I mean, we talked about draft picks in last episode and how they're compiling them,
But the Thunder could be like
Clippers
those
have
draft
nothing.
picks could go through the roof in value. If
Exactly.
the Clippers lose all those assets,
turn into trash.
then they're the bottom of the league.
If the Clippers turn into trash,
comfortably,
the Thunder will probably draft another
Yeah.
superstar at some point.
Yeah.
Just based on
there's
the
a couple
numbers.
coming up too. So
Yeah, and I still think Sam Presti overrates first round picks, but that particular haul he got from the Clippers was absurd.
well,
And it was at the time, even though you had to do it to get Kawhi, because that's what Kawhi demanded.
Yeah.
If you want Kawhi, you got to get me Paul George.
Yeah.
Give up way too much.
I like Shea. I think that was the biggest mistake that franchise has made. You've got a point guard, of the future who you've just handed.
Given away.
I'd put him on par right now with Paul George. He's
there now.
Yeah, he's man,
just
similar
the overall,
numbers, just
exactly
good defensive player. Like
solid
man,
game.
You don't get many 6'6" guys who can play point guard like that. So
cover 3 positions.
Yeah, that's a bad move by the Clippers at this point. They still have time to redeem it, but I don't see them doing it this season. And I'd say that Kawhi leaves for nothing.
I think if they don't make the Western Conference Finals, that team is done.
I agree.
That's my mild take.
I agree.
But I don't see Kawhi being like, you know what, I'll stick it out. I like this situation. The fact that like what happened in Game 7 has to weigh on their minds. If they don't use it as motivation to improve, they've wasted 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was really disappointing to watch. I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Seeing Kawhi and Paul George just toss up brick after brick.
It's embarrassing, man. I couldn't believe it.
It was shocking to watch.
I couldn't believe it.
Meanwhile, Denver was just on a roll.
It made me feel really sick watching Paul George brick.
It made me sick
constantly.
Looking at Steve Ballmer sick.
Yeah.
Because he was done.
I really like Steve Ballmer too. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
But that franchise has a lot of work to do to compete in the West. I don't think that they're beating the LeBron Lakers. I don't think they're coming close.
Lakers are too strong.
Like, I don't see them beating either of the two teams we've already mentioned. I think Jokic has that ball on a string against the Clippers. There's no big man on there that can even come close to stopping Jokic.
Like, Ibaka is an improvement defensively
100%,
to that point
100%,
over Harrell.
Yeah, 100%.
But Zubac and Ibaka, and if there's anyone else I'm missing, they're not stopping Jokic.
No, that's it.
Nobody is.
They're their big mans. That's their big mans.
Yeah.
That's their big men. And they're not getting any help defensively against Jokic.
That's right. The other thing is I think they should try to improve their point guard position. I like Patrick Beverley defensively.
Yeah.
I love his attitude. I don't like it. I love it.
Yeah.
Because he's scrappy. He's fought for everything he's earned.
Yeah. He's a Heat guy. Heat culture.
He started there.
Yeah, I know. And they got rid of him.
Yeah. See you later, Pat.
Yeah. Sorry, Bev.
He probably said some weird stuff.
Yeah.
They need to. I really feel like they need to trade Lou Williams. I think it's time to move on. He's
really
such a liability defensively.
He is, man. It's
bad.
I like him as a six man, but he has to be on a roster where you can contribute defensively. Him and Harrell on the floor at the same time was bad defensively. Bad.
Amazing offensively, but bad defensively.
Yeah.
Lou has to be hidden in order to justify him being on the floor in a playoff game. And it's very hard these days because a lot of teams go versatile. They have multiple weapons. You have to kind of get lucky to get through a series with Lou Williams not negatively affecting you defensively.
He's another guy I could see being a spark plug for the Bucks off the bench. He might work on the Bucks, having as many defensive players as they do.
He's not on a crazy contract either.
I think he's on $8 million. That's off the top of the head. Do you want to just fact check me on that, Macca? He's a guy that probably would do better on another roster now. I think for the Clippers' sake and for Lou Will's sake, he was copping a lot of the blame for last year. I don't think he had anything to do with. He is on exactly 8. There you go. How good am I?
That's a good value contract.
It is. It's really good value. So he's someone that could be traded this season. Wouldn't be surprised if he was. And I want them to add D Rose. I really want D Rose on that roster.
I think you might have wrote in our little notes Terry Rozier as well.
I like Rozier too on that roster. He's a better playmaker than Pat Bev. He would be good off the bench. You'd probably start with Pat Bev for his defense off the jump. And then you bring on Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier's contract's ridiculous. So I don't know if you want to add that contract to that franchise, but he's not bad defensively. He's not good, but he's not bad. Very average NBA defender. Much better than Lou Williams. They have some moves to make to be competitive, I think, in the West.
Yeah.
Especially with, the potential resurgence of the Warriors, the improvements that Phoenix have made in the backcourt. There's a lot of matchups there that just don't work against this Clippers team. So
Chris Paul versus Patrick Beverley is not good.
No, it's not good. It's not good. And for all of Pat Beverley's defensive ability, he's not guarding Chris Paul.
Chris Paul's like doesn't even care on offense
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Like he might
It's
find
gonna
Beverly
bother
is a
him.
pest
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah.
But offensively, he's not even worried. He's just
No,
going to
no,
help off
no.
and do Chris Paul things.
Correct.
So, I mean, last thing on there, I think the biggest loss for them in the offseason was Harrell, honestly. Like, might be obvious, but it's less about the points and the rebounds and all that stuff.
The
it's
attitude.
the identity and the attitude, exactly, the spirit. Him and Pat Beverly were like when they when they took the Warriors to 6 games in 2019 in the first round.
It was him. Yeah.
It was the two of them, and I mean Lou Williams was having his moments offensively, but the spirit he plays with is just second to none, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I actually think Harrell, just to boost the Lakers a little bit here, I think he's going to have a vendetta against the Clippers in those matchups because Harrell loves to go off against teams that just gave up on him.
He has the chip on his shoulder, which
game.
I really appreciate.
Oh, it's amazing.
Players like that, like watching, I love referring back to the Heat, but watching Jimmy Butler go off against Minnesota, against Chicago, like these are teams that absolutely tried to butcher this guy's name, and to see him play the way he does, and Philadelphia even, that, just watching him perform against those teams, you understand that, players that are successful in the NBA carry that chip. They carry that chip and they're like, well, you said that I wasn't this or this. I'm going to show you why I am. Yeah,
exactly.
And I like it. I appreciate that. And I hope Harrell has a really good season after the way that Paul George pretty much cursed him out.
Yeah.
I can see him having a really big season for the Lakers.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's less about the Lakers being better with him and more so the Clippers being worse because they lack his spirit.
Yeah,
and identity.
Yeah,
was a big part of the Clippers. So the next team we wanted to look at in the West after the Clippers was Phoenix. This is probably where you would say the second tier. I mean, you could argue the Clippers are in this tier. The second tier of teams challenging the Lakers. Starts.
I think the Clippers are one of those interesting franchises. They deserve to be in the top 4 in the West, but will they get there?
They have the talent, but they may not have the wherewithal to get there or the spirit. As we just talked about, they're missing Montrezl Harrell. Phoenix Suns coming off a hot bubble stretch. Everyone knows they traded for Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Terrific move. Can't say enough good things about Chris Paul.
Best point guard they've had in Phoenix since Steve Nash.
Yes.
That's
not a hot take.
Sensational. Not a hot take, no.
That's a fairly cold take, but it's absolutely correct.
They haven't had good point play there for a very long time. Rubio is probably the benchmark for a starting point guard in the NBA. If you're below Rubio, you're not a good starter. If you're above Rubio, then you're an above average starter.
Yeah.
I like Ricky Rubio. That's not a slight on him. To be a good NBA player, you've got to have, a lot of ability. So Ricky Rubio is a good NBA player, but Chris Paul's a significant upgrade.
Absolutely. One of the top minds, LeBron comes to mind as well with that one. Yep. But Chris Paul is something special on the basketball court. Competitive, intelligent, resourceful. He never gives up. He's had a string of bad luck and he's had some bad performances here and there, which everybody probably knows about. But I'm really happy that Phoenix has got him, and I'm happy for Chris Paul because he's got a good backcourt mate now with Devin Booker.
His plus minus on court is ridiculous.
It is.
He is the best point guard on court plus minus in the NBA, which is, man, point guard, you could argue the guy that carries the ball up the court's the point guard. So across the NBA, there's obviously Giannis, LeBron, James Harden, Nikola Jokic above him. But then you've got Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Get a top 5 in plus minus who was playing on an average team in OKC, you would say they were probably, on that seesaw of will they be in the playoffs, will they not? To be the guy that carried that franchise to the playoffs, he just put them on his back and was like, no, we're not missing the playoffs. I'm
he inspired them for sure, and like wasn't going to let them just fall over.
No.
They had good talent. I wouldn't say he single-handedly carried them. Yeah. Obviously, SGA was there. Schroeder was a 6th Man of the Year candidate, and Gallinari played well. Steven Adams, blah blah blah.
They had a good roster. I'm not saying
Chris
they
Paul was the focal point for sure, and it was amazing to see because like he had come off a season in Houston where it was kind of like, like is he starting to get old and fall apart a bit? Can we trust him anymore at $40+ million a year? He came back and he said, yes, you can.
Whenever the game was on the line, it was Chris Paul.
He was the clutchest player in the league, I believe.
Yeah.
There's multiple stats that back that up.
Yeah.
They were the clutchest team, and he was, in particular, the clutchest player.
Yep.
And the clutch is a bit of a, it can be arbitrary. You can choose like last 5 minutes, last 2 minutes, last 1 minute.
Yeah.
But he met a lot of the metrics very well.
For his age, defensively, probably one of the best point guards in the league defensively.
Absolutely.
Just the ability to stay in front of a player is, one of the hardest things you can do as a defender is to anticipate your opponent's next move.
He's excellent.
But Chris Paul sees the game 7 steps ahead.
He is excellent at that. He plays chess.
Unbelievable.
On defense, on offense as well. But it's just weird. Like, don't know if everyone would get this reference, but I'd liken him to a Wayne Gretzky in hockey.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody who knows the game 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. When everyone else is kind of reacting, while everyone's reactive, he's proactive. Yeah. And it's incredible. This has turned into a Chris Paul love fest. And I'm not ashamed because Chris Paul is great.
Either. I still feel like people look at his contract and go overpaid, but you couldn't pay that guy enough to be on your franchise.
Appropriately paid.
100%. I would pay him whatever he wanted to be on my franchise, and I think Houston made a huge mistake in picking Harden over Chris Paul. And that's not to say James Harden is a bad NBA player. Probably the best scorer of all time individually.
Arguably, yeah.
But Chris Paul is a guy that makes everyone around him better if they buy into what he has to say.
Yeah. Monty Williams and Chris Paul have a great relationship.
Yeah, they do.
I don't think they're going to have a problem.
I don't think they will either.
Two.
I really like the addition that they made of Jay Crowder too. He's a guy that can come in and help that locker room straight away. Loves working. Just absolute
good size.
Workhorse.
He's a great.
Like a Marquette product, man. Marquette produce these workhorse NBA players.
Something about the Marquette.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about their college system, but they just produce these just bullnose NBA players. And I really like the addition of Jay Crowder just in general. He balled out in the playoffs for the Heat, guarded Giannis one-on-one a fair bit and did a tremendous job. So defensively, they've instantly got a guy that can come out and guard 1 through 5. He could guard up against the center. He's that strong. So their starting 5 looks great. They've got Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and DeAndre Ayton. That would be my starting 5, whether they run with that or not. Cameron Johnson could be interchangeable there. Whether you wanted to bring Jay Crowder off the bench, I wouldn't, but who knows what the Suns will do. I think they've done a really good job. They kept Saric as well, which was a good move. I love
Saric, man. Yeah. One of my favorite players in the NBA.
Just a good guy to bring into your offense. He can pass from the 4. You can play the 5 if you have to put him there.
In the right matchups.
Yeah, he's comfortable playing pretty much any position on the court. So, he's another good guy that they had to hold on to. The Suns had a good offseason. They did a lot of things right for the first time in quite a while.
Absolutely.
So I like it.
Just to bring this back to the Suns and if they can challenge the Lakers, I would say, the Lakers have a formidable front court that Phoenix can't really match, but the Lakers don't have somebody of Chris Paul's or Devin Booker for that matters ability in the backcourt. I like that matchup against the Lakers. I don't know how many games it would go, but I'd love to see that because I think Phoenix is dangerous.
Yeah, I like that matchup. I think if DeAndre Ayton can take a massive step defensively this season, then there are a chance of at least slowing Davis and LeBron down. With Jay Crowder at the 4, he would be the main guy guarding LeBron. Yeah. And then Ayton trying to shut down Davis is the obvious matchup there. So I like that matchup across the board. I think that you're spot on. And in the backcourt, if Booker turns into a superstar, which, I've always thought Devin Booker has the ability to take that next step and be one of the best scorers in the NBA. If he's going to do it, this is going to be the year next to Chris Paul.
You're right.
Having less offensive responsibility, and now it's just get to the hoop or shoot,
catch lobs.
Man, how easy is that? Like for a guy like Devin Booker.
I think Chris Paul's gonna be happy with that.
Yeah.
He didn't really Steven Adams is okay, but he doesn't have the athleticism of an Ayton, nor the potential. I think Chris Paul can unlock that.
Yeah.
So the only concern I have with Phoenix is the ownership. Their owner. This is probably the first time that they've really taken a risky. They've spent a risky amount of money on a player. Now they didn't. It's not that they signed Chris Paul, but the contract's been taken on, and that's a lot of money for a guy of that age. Even though we just discussed how, he's worth every penny, but that's a risky move for an owner who is known to be a bit tight. So
yeah,
the ownership in Phoenix leaves a lot to be desired. That would probably be the only thing I can think of that really would throw this sort of dynamic off of the team working out really well. But anyway, I think Phoenix is a decent challenger in that second tier in the West.
Look, the only issue I had with their offseason was drafting Jalen Smith. I think that they reached. But, you don't know what you're going to get out of a drafted player until they start playing in the NBA. They could have seen something that, guys like me sitting on the couch. Exactly. He could be something else in the NBA than he was in the college system. We see that a lot with guys like Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero.
No doubt.
I could name all the Miami players that were undrafted or second rounders.
Yep.
It's completely different when you get into the NBA, and he could be someone that comes out. I'm hoping for Phoenix's sake that he is. But yeah, I thought that pick was a bit of a reach, and they probably should have gone a different direction with that pick. So that's the only real issue I had. It was the 10th overall pick, and there were plenty of guys taken after him that were
fairly high,
better NBA players.
Yeah, so, no doubt.
Well, in my humble opinion,
very humble,
he was not worthy of the 10th overall pick, but he could prove me wrong, and I hope he does. I really hope he does, because I don't know what I'm talking about. So
you do, but you don't.
Yeah.
You watch a lot of drafts, but you're also clueless.
Yeah,
so
you just don't know what you're going to get out of the drafts. That's the best part about an NBA draft is he's going to be great, and then
he turns out
to be garbage, or the other way around. I love being proven wrong.
So the next team we wanted to talk about were the Portland Trailblazers, who had a interesting offseason.
Very active.
Super active.
Yeah.
It's not that they brought in new fresh faces. They brought in a lot of the same, they re-signed. They brought back Cantor after an absent year in Boston. They also re-signed Rodney Hood, who was unfortunately injured early in the season. They re-signed him to 2 years, $20 million.
Yeah.
They brought in Robert Covington, who's in my opinion, a little bit overrated, but he was a good pickup. I think he goes to every team and gets showered with praise, but it's his intangibles. He's a great defensive player. He plays a role, and he's going to win games with his hustle and determination.
I think he really suits Portland.
I think so as well. I think they've needed that more so than they needed a Carmelo.
Yeah.
Although they needed Carmelo for the bubble for different reasons, he was really big for them in the bubble. But Covington is somebody they've probably been looking for a fair amount of time.
Look, Covington catch and shoot three. Defensively
is great.
Unbelievable.
Shot blocking and perimeter.
Yeah, man. Yeah. He can guard 1 through 5. He's another guy at his size. It's ridiculous the kind of impact he has defensively.
Yeah.
Similar to Zion in the way that he can move a big man at that size.
It's very interesting how he does that.
And he doesn't have the weight behind it either. So he's a very clever defensive player. I think he just knows the right spots to get to. But yeah, he's a very good pickup for a team that was very lackluster defensively last season. You're going to have that with Dame and CJ in the backcourt. CJ in the backcourt and Melo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who can't really defend.
He's never been known for defense.
No.
But
he gets Melo. Buckets, but so do those other two guys. So it was very important that they found more defense, and that's the first thing they addressed this offseason, which I respect.
Absolutely.
The move for Enes Kanter was confusing, considering they added all of this defense, and then they bring back Enes Kanter. Interesting, but we'll see what they have in store.
Well, the funny thing with the Enes Kanter thing is that they get Collins back, and they also signed. Well, they've got Nurkic back, obviously healthy, who was really good in the bubble, if not out of shape. And they also brought in Harry Giles, who I really liked. I wanted the Raptors to pick up.
Yeah.
I was a little bit upset at Masai Ujiri for that.
Underrated move. He's cheap too. He's only on a minimum contract.
If he gets playing time, I think you'll see. I mean, people that watched a bit of the Kings and watched him in particular understand like he's got a high basketball IQ for a 22-year-old.
Much better system in Portland than he was playing in the Kings.
He should benefit from this. Yeah. I'm excited to see him play.
Luke Walton.
Just as a forewarning, we're not touching on the Kings today.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Walton. Kings fans, but Luke Walton is doing you no favors and is making your roster look much worse than what it actually is.
I agree.
I think Marvin Bagley is completely underutilized. That's all I'll say about the Kings. But we'll get to see the potential of Harry Giles now. I think if you can get him back to what he was projected as the number one pick.
In high school, he was the number one recruit.
4 years ago.
He got injured a couple times.
Yeah, when he went to Duke, he was the number one prospect in the country.
That's right.
So
that means a lot.
I think he could end up getting more minutes than Enes Kanter.
Or even Zach Collins. He could steal Zach Collins' minutes.
And Zach Collins,
he got
an upgrade, didn't he? So Portland picked up Zach Collins' 4th-year rookie option.
That's right.
So it's interesting if they extend him, but they've now got Harry Giles on a much, much cheaper contract. He's on a minimum contract. So I thought that was a really savvy move by Portland.
Absolutely.
Even as a trade piece, halfway through the season, Harry Giles could be someone that a contending team looks at as a bench 5. But yeah, the only thing between Zach Collins and Harry Giles is that Harry Giles can't stretch the floor. So he can hit a couple of mid-range twos, but he's really got to work on that jumper to be able to compete at the NBA level.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's decent from the mid-range. If he wants to hit threes, it's definitely a work in progress.
Yeah.
But suffice to say, I do agree Giles was a shrewd move. Great pickup for Portland. And then it makes, depends on, it's a 1-year minimum contract.
Yeah.
They'll probably end up re-signing the guy they like more. That's a hot take.
Wow. You really went out on that one.
I had to analyze that one in my head before it came out.
Who do you think that they'll end up picking up?
Giles.
Yeah, okay.
Collins is the homegrown guy. He was there for 4 seasons.
I'm really worried about Collins' injuries. He can't seem to stay on the court.
Yeah.
The best ability is availability, and Collins doesn't have it. So,
I love that phrase.
But that's the other thing that, the other issue with Harry Giles is he is in the same sort of boat. If they can get him healthy and they can keep him healthy, then they're probably in with a good chance of turning him into a solid investment.
Yeah.
The other guy I really like that, I was upset that Miami let go of, but for that kind of money, how are you going to keep him? Derek Jones Jr.
Oh, right.
He is
phenomenal
defensively.
And defense.
1 through 5 comfortably. Guards 1 through 5 comfortably.
I'll give you 1 through 4. He's a bit skinny for 5s, but
no. I've seen it. I've watched it.
I haven't seen it,
dude.
I think he weighs like 200 pounds.
He does. He's a lightweight. But I've seen him. I've seen him guard 5s. I've seen him against Joel Embiid. I've seen him guard Embiid. Yeah, man, incredible. The switchability.
To see this.
He blocked Joel Embiid as well. So
good on
you
him.
Can probably find that clip online. In fact, I'm going to pull it up now.
That wasn't a 2K clip, right?
No, okay. 100%. He blocked Joel Embiid in a game against Philly, obviously. But yeah, his switchability on defense is
no doubt
incredible, man.
At least 1 through 4. You're saying 1 through 5, whatever it is.
Yeah,
good pickup for them.
Yep.
Now, this is the point that I want to make about the Blazers. I almost think they have too much depth. They have a lot of quality players that deserve minutes.
I can agree with that.
But Terry Stotts has a big job ahead. Now, one of the key things I read today actually is that Carmelo said he's swallowing the pill of playing off the bench because Terry Stotts says he's likely coming off the bench. And if Carmelo's on board with that, that bolsters their bench big time. That means you can probably start, obviously, Lillard, McCollum backcourt, very dynamic. You don't have to go into too much detail about them. And then you've got Covington. You could probably start, you might start Carmelo there, or you could start Hood and Covington, and then you've got Nurkic as your big. And then off the bench, the reason I bring up the glut of talent is because I feel like Gary Trent needs to get some more minutes. I think his role is going to be reduced given the glut of talent they've acquired. It's not bad to acquire talent, but you want to give the guys that have shown that they're good players more minutes. Gary Trent was excellent in the bubble.
He was.
Again, putting stock into the bubble, is Gary Trent's shooting sustainable? Maybe not, but nonetheless, he's proven himself to be a quality player, and he deserves to play.
Really good catch and shoot guy.
Confident.
Can actually carry the ball too. On ball, off ball, that's really important in today's NBA. Probably going back even to last year, it wasn't such a big deal, but with the way that the game has evolved over the last year, having guys at every position that can make the right decision is so important. And Gary Trent Jr. is probably one of the most undervalued players in the NBA.
You're right.
He's not on a big contract. I think he's on about $4 million. You can fact check me on that. He's probably their best asset off the bench. And I'm interested to see what kind of season Anthony Simon has.
Me too.
I think he's Simons.
Anthony Simons. Very weird name. No offense, Anthony. I do think he's the guy that a lot of teams have where he's kind of untouchable. The other teams are trying to make trades and they go, what about Simons? And then the GM goes, nope, untouchable. And to what extent? Like, is it because you want insurance for Lillard and McCollum? Fair. What are you doing with Lillard and McCollum? Because then you're wasting away Simons. And Simons, he showed such high potential to be a starting player.
He intrigues me. Some of his game reminds me of Derrick Rose, and other parts of his game, they're so unpolished, and
it's a bit out of whack.
Yeah, they need a lot of work. His athleticism is there. His ability to get into the rack is hot and cold.
It is.
You can't pick what you're going to get with him.
I think that comes with inconsistent minutes.
Yeah.
Let's say he got traded to Charlotte instead of them signing Rozier. He gets all the opportunity in the world. Maybe he has to compete with Devontae Graham, but that type of opportunity where it's just basketball, I get the ball now, I may make mistakes or whatever, but that's how you grow.
Yeah, good luck. You know what I mean? Like, put me out there, you'll see what you'll get, but like, good luck with it, because it's going to be hot and cold.
It's going to be hot and cold, but I think that's how you improve, and I think that's what he needs, but at this stage, it's tough, because he's behind two of the best guards in the league. So, again, rounding back to the Lakers and how the Blazers can challenge them, I believe the Blazers are not necessarily a threat, although they are deep. If the team buys in and they play well together as a team, Lillard and McCollum are really tough to stop, but then you need that third guy, Nurkic, if he's in shape, is a problem for the Lakers. Although Marc Gasol has the defensive chops to cut him out a bit.
I like that a lot.
But then again, the team has more depth now, and I think that's what the GM was going for, Neil O'Shea. Good for him and what he did. I do worry that they have too much depth, but we'll see how the season plays out.
I think every team in the West has tried to add a LeBron stopper, and that's what Portland tried to do with Rocco and Derrick Jones. They were just like, we need more switchability because Damian Lillard and CJ just don't have that defensive game. So I like the moves that they made, but as far as going against the Lakers, that's like a ping pong ball trying to stop a juggernaut. It's just not going to happen.
No doubt. Well, that rounds out to me the second tier of teams. I would have had, so the first tier was either the Nuggets or the Mavericks. Then you move on to the Clippers, Suns, and the Blazers. This is the third tier.
No, I've got them second.
Warriors?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors as a second tier team, apparently. I'm going to say probably at best a 2.5 tier.
You're going to say third or 2.5?
Because they're missing Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Massive part of the team. Obviously, Curry should be back and healthy. I think he's poised for another potential MVP run.
Can
if
I
he's
put it
healthy.
like this?
Okay.
Do you take Steph or Dame?
Wow. We should save that for a either or segment.
Just do it.
I'll take Steph.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you take Wiggins or CJ?
Wiggins.
Oubre or Covington?
Covington. And I like Oubre,
Yeah.
but I would take Covington.
Green or Derek Jones Jr.? Contracts aside.
Green.
Do you take Wiseman or Nurkic?
Nurkic. So that, doing the math, I think the Blazers
It's
won
3-2.
3 of 5. But nonetheless,
You get what I'm saying, though?
I don't actually. What's your point?
The point I'm making is that roster compared to Portland,
Mm-hmm.
what's the difference?
Not that much of a drop off.
Yeah.
I would say Portland's deeper. The Warriors
think
bench
once
is
you get-
unproven.
Yeah, look, once you get past 5, it's a bit of a stretch. They've
Yeah,
got
starting
one-
5. I'll give
They
you that.
added Wanamaker, which I like. I think that's a good move for them. They needed a point guard off the bench.
Yeah.
They needed a good one off the bench. So I like that move a lot. But yeah, look, it depends what Draymond Green we get this season. But regardless, he's still defensively one of the best power forwards in the NBA.
One of the best defensive players I've ever seen.
And he can guard 1 through 5. Another guy, it's a LeBron stopper you've got on the roster already. So I like their roster.
There's
I think
room for
they did a
improvement.
lot.
They're going to make some moves, I think, during the season because they have a lot of young guys that are unproven. Like just guys that are going to get minutes here, like Jordan Poole, Eric Paschal. I don't know how to say that name. I think he's going to get some minutes.
I like that. Paschal.
That's what it looks like. Wiseman as well. So like 3 guys that are going to get a lot of minutes are pretty young. You could even throw Wiggins in there as young. He's only 25.
It's crazy, man.
But so is Oubre.
Feels like he's been around forever.
It does. So I just wanted to say basically, yeah, Curry poised for an MVP run. He's a special player, one of the best players ever. His gravity on the floor means so much to the Warriors. They were missing that all season. Like they had D'Angelo Russell had a 50-point game and he sprinkled in some good games, but he's no Curry. Curry lights the team on fire. When they get on a roll, it's mostly because of his talent. Like
they needed help. They needed help last season. They needed help on that roster last season, and Russell wasn't that guy.
No, they got him because he was an asset, and they didn't want to lose Durant for nothing.
Yeah,
so I understand that.
Yeah, I get it too.
But he wasn't a great fit. He did yield Wiggins. Say all you want about him. We can get into that in a second. But I think the GM did well to manage Russell, despite the fact that he didn't fit well on the team.
Wiggins is intriguing for me on the Warriors because they have such a good coaching.
Development, accountability, just like a will to win, competitiveness. Like you're not going to...
It's completely different to the Minnesota system.
Oh my God.
And Minnesota have proven time and time again that they mismanage talent. Kevin Love, Karl Anthony Towns, who is supposed to be a superstar, but you can't call him that. He hasn't done it.
He's got superstar numbers, but the obviously win total hasn't been great.
The only time they made the playoffs was with Jimmy Butler, and he left that roster saying they need help. They're not winning. I want to be on
Jimmy
a roster
knows
that
what's
wins.
up.
And look, I
don't think it's an indictment necessarily on Cat that the team is rubbish.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But the franchise is poorly run.
100%. It's more the franchise than the players. They've added some really good players to that roster.
Yeah.
And this is just touching on Minnesota. I think they're a team that, again, will finish outside the playoffs. But they have a lot of good pieces. They just never do anything with them. Getting off that roster, I'm very interested to see what kind of season, a whole season and off season, Andrew Wiggins can have on a brand new team.
I hope he's been putting in the work because this is as good an opportunity as he's going to get. I cannot see anywhere else that might maximize his gifts, his talent. When he was picked number 1, he looked like a star. Yeah. Like he had the athleticism. He's 6'7", 6'8", good shooter in college. Yeah. For some reason, he was better defensively in college. He just has sort of not really cared as much in the NBA.
Yep.
But I have a bonus Canadian homer take.
Oh, yeah.
I think Wiggins is going to have a big season. I think he's going to average 25 a game on efficient shooting because Clay is out.
Okay.
He's playing off of Curry. He's going to have ample opportunity to get easy buckets, I think. You're going to have Draymond Green feeding him the ball in the good spots.
Yeah.
Once he gets into the system with the Warriors, it's going to be A+, I think. Wiggins is going to go off this season.
All right.
Book it.
I'm on board. Okay. I like that take. I think I'm really curious to see, again, what Wiggins can do on a brand new roster, brand new coaching team, brand new roster as far as the talent that's around him.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's interesting to see the other moves that they made. Trading for Oubre was strange, but I like it. I like
it too.
Oubre's a dark horse for most improved player. Yeah.
Okay. Because he averaged 17 last year.
He did average 17.
He'd have to take a big jump.
I wouldn't think it'd be necessarily a big jump in terms of numbers.
Okay.
I think it'd just be the impact on the game. He is now on a team that is prime time.
Yeah.
With Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Must watch. Seeing Steph Curry back.
Absolutely.
And James Wiseman's an interesting piece.
I like him.
Yeah, I like him too. I think, I did kind of come out and say that Denny is a better prospect than Wiseman. I'm not going back on that take. I'm just saying that James Wiseman is a good pickup for the Warriors. He won't have to do much this season.
That's exactly right.
They'll pretty much just have to ask him to get boards. That's it.
I think James Wiseman is an excellent pickup for that team because, first of all, he doesn't, like you just said, he doesn't have to do a whole lot. He just has to come in and do what's asked of him.
Yeah.
There's no pressure on him to be a franchise savior. Like if maybe he went to Minnesota or even Charlotte. Yeah. I think Charlotte would have been an absolutely disastrous situation for him.
Yeah.
Because you're getting Hayward and you've got decent players around, but bringing him in and asking him to be, maybe 2010
from day one. Yeah. It's not going to work.
We need you to do this,
especially as a center, and that's why DeAndre Ayton's so curious to me in Phoenix, because now they have the pieces there for DeAndre Ayton to shine.
Absolutely.
With a center, you can't bring a center in and expect them to be the number one option from day one. A center needs other pieces around them to be able to perform the way that they're able to.
Yeah.
And that's why Bogut was so impactful for the Warriors.
Yeah.
So circling back to Bogut, who retired, he is and was the Warriors' best center when he was there. And he impacted winning defensively, on offense.
He didn't have to do
boards.
too much.
He did what he needed to do every week.
Exactly.
And that is what makes a good center. And that's why
I modern NBA, exactly
100%.
Right.
Modern NBA, a center's there, set screens, get boards,
block shots,
or
alter shots.
Correct, and be in the paint and be imposing.
Yeah.
And Wiseman can do that from day one. He doesn't have to score 20. Doesn't even have to score 10. He can come out and score 6 points, and still impact winning games.
He's an imposing physical presence, and that's why I like him. At worst, he could just be the next athletic center. I would say, at worst, we might be looking at
JaVale McGee.
Yeah, that's actually a good comparison.
JaVale McGee.
I was going to say a poor man's like DeAndre Ayton or something because he's got a better jumper than JaVale.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he can stretch the floor. That's something JaVale's never been able to do. But I think that his athleticism is important for a team like the Warriors who run.
Up-tempo style is perfect for him.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'm really
like a deer.
I'm really happy with what they've done with the roster. I think that there's improvements to be made.
If they're healthy, they're back in the playoff picture, and I love it because again, the fans may not be there. It depends on how the season goes and what happens. But if the Warriors get back and get on a roll, that's a dangerous team.
They've still got assets too to trade, like Damian Lee.
He's all right.
He looked good last year.
Yeah.
He didn't look great, but
he was okay
for a contending team to play off the bench.
Yeah.
He's not a bad pickup. Jordan Poole, who played pretty well off the bench as well last season, started a fair few games once Curry got injured.
Yeah.
That Kent Bazemore's a really good pickup off that bench defensively.
I also like Marquise Chris.
Yeah, I like Marquise Chris a lot. Yeah.
Good contract. He's making $1.8 million.
He was really good last season.
Last thing I wanted to say about the Warriors, you brought up a good point. They brought in Kent Bazemore, Brad Wanamaker, two nice pieces for the backcourt, or Bazemore's pretty versatile. Pascal is going to play some minutes. He's like a 3-4 type of guy, maybe a 5.
Well, he's a guy I can see getting traded to at some point
He's a
through the
piece.
season.
Him and, like you said, Damian Lee maybe.
Marquise
something
Chris
else.
could be another trade piece depending on Wiseman's development.
Get a vet.
Yeah, there's a lot of trade pieces on that roster. I'm curious to see how they attack it. As unfortunate as the Clay injury is,
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
there's plenty of potential there for this Warriors team to make a deep playoff run, even without Clay, as long as they make the right moves. But you're right, that's a huge loss for the
Massive.
morale of the team, and for its 1 through 5. It's just it's tough.
Well, that's the thing. I like the Warriors to make the playoffs. I have them as my 7 seed. I had the Nuggets as my 2 seed. Whoever the Warriors play as a 7 seed, that's a bad matchup for you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be on your toes defending Curry and what have you.
Yeah.
Wiggins stepping up. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. The West is deep, as everybody knows.
Yeah,
I
probably have them. Yeah, they're interchangeable with the Clippers for me.
Oh.
Yeah,
You could almost, like 4 through
4 through. Man, I'd
8?
say through 8. Yeah,
maybe 9.
even 10. Like there's
switch it up. It doesn't matter.
There's some really good rosters in the West, and every year you just, as I said, a team just comes from nowhere.
You can't really.
Or one of the guys in the middle ends up like no one expected Denver to finish where they did last season.
It was fairly unexpected.
And then
They're a good team. But
They're a good team, yeah. But you had the Clippers second.
you
all
just
season.
assumed that they would be like, all right, it's the playoffs now. Let's turn it on.
Yeah,
And then Denver beat that.
yeah,
Beat that out of them.
yeah.
The next thing, just regarding the Warriors, I think you had brought this up to me outside the podcast, is they have playoff fatigue from years past. Just Curry and Draymond and Looney to that extent, also Steve Kerr
And Clay.
and Clay if he manages to get healthy. They're going to have a sense of motivation again. It's like,
We've had a break.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We need to get back on the mountaintop.
So looking at very interesting statistic, the difference in the games played between Devin Booker and Klay Thompson, playoffs included, is significant. And that kind of leads me to believe that playoff fatigue and that 7-game series, every year that the Warriors have had to put up since 2011, the first time they appeared in the playoffs.
I think it was 2013.
2013. Oh, there you go. Okay. So since 2013, since they appeared in the playoffs,
Every year.
they've been there every year except for last year.
Making a deep run.
And yeah, it's
Not every year, but most years.
unbelievable
Yeah.
that, they lasted this long. And it's crazy that the injuries just happen back to back like that. And
So dramatic and so devastating.
yeah,
Yeah. Career-altering injuries.
I really feel for Clay, and
Because he probably would have worked his behind off to get back in shape and just to rehab his
ACL
knee.
is so serious. That's
Yeah.
such a bad injury to have.
They take it slow, and it's just months and months of rehab. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, you've got an Achilles injury.
Yeah, and that's
It's
a product.
brutal.
That's a product of a knee injury. Unfortunately, that's what happens. Those are the muscles that you're not working on end up fatiguing and weakening, and then you come back and you're trying to go 100 miles an hour, and your body doesn't want you to.
It's not used to it.
And I really feel for Clay. That's awful news
I love Clay, man.
for the Warriors.
Clay's
He's
a
one of
great
my
player to
favorite players
watch.
to watch.
Yeah.
I put out a take on TikTok just over a week ago saying that Duncan Robinson's the new Klay Thompson. And I was instantly forward on that, saying that Klay Thompson is the best catch and shoot player in the NBA.
Maybe ever?
Yeah.
Maybe?
I would jump on board with that. But unfortunately, it's more than unfortunate. It's really sad. He
It's brutal.
now hasn't played for over a year, and we're looking at over 2 years without Klay Thompson in the NBA. And it feels like yesterday that he dropped 37 in one quarter.
Oh, I have
Yeah, there's
I
a
have that
bunch
whole
of Klay
video.
highlights. There's a bunch of Klay highlights that he's incredible. Going back to playoff fatigue, it's something that the NBA has to address, is the amount of games that teams play.
They've talked about reducing, like this season is 72 games. They've talked about reducing it anyway from 82. And you always hear the old heads yap, yap, yap. Oh, we played 82. Why did they get a break? But it's not about that. It's about the player's health.
Longevity in the game.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's think about it from a business perspective. The NBA wants the most out of its product. If it's wearing it down with 82 game seasons where sometimes the games are meaningless, especially when you have players sitting out for load management and what have you, it's if you want to maximize your profits and your business product, then it's best to look after the players that produce the product.
Yeah, missing Clay and Steph for a majority of the season really hurt their bottom line.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you've really got to look at shortening the playoff series to probably to 5 games. And
really,
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe one of the series. I wouldn't do every series 5 games. It would be interesting. I wouldn't mind testing it.
I'd probably do.
I love a 7-game series.
5, and then do Eastern Conference and the finals as 7. But I don't think it's necessary because when the team's better. Like 7 games isn't going to make or break that.
No,
that
actually,
series.
To that point, I think if you lose to a team 3 times, like maybe it's time to hang it up.
I mean, it's 3 or 4. Like
3 out of 5.
That's really what we're losing here is 1 game more.
Yeah.
As far as a winning series is 1 game more. It's really, I don't think it's a bad move at all for the NBA to look at doing 5 games, and it cuts down on the amount of games teams play throughout the season. So, all right. The other team to look at in the West is the New Orleans Pelicans, who are super interesting to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
Really good pieces on the roster. Re-upped with Brandon Ingram, which we talked about in the last episode. But Zion.
He's back.
He's back.
I can't wait to watch him again.
Yeah. Steven Adams is also a super interesting addition, and I'm really curious to see how they fit him into the offense.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely limited offensively.
Yeah.
Obviously he can't shoot really. I don't think I've ever seen him take a jump shot.
Will he help Zion? I've seen him hit a 3.
They're a physical team now, physically imposing front court. Ingram's not physically imposing per se, but those Zion and Adams are going to get boards, and Adams is going to set good screens for Lonzo, which I like because Lonzo, he has a big season coming up here. He had a very bad bubble. I'm not going to go into any of the stats, but he was super underwhelming for one reason or another. Not everybody adjusted well to the bubble, but I'm really looking forward to Zion being back to just dunk on everybody. Like the posters are incoming.
Yeah, just super effective, plus minus, defensively, very tough matchup for any offensive player.
His second jump is like unbelievable.
Dude, he gets up and down so quick for a big dude.
No one else has a chance.
Man.
And he's so young and he's just very spry right now. But I don't know if the way he plays is sustainable, but he's skilled as well. He's a good passer. His jump shot, I think, is probably improved in the offseason.
Yeah.
But he's a great finisher too. I can't get over how well he finishes around the rim.
Yeah.
At weird angle. Like his rookie season was full of weird angles and like twisting drives and just bouncing off of guys.
For a guy that size, he is incredibly acrobatic. And I'm really curious to see how the Pelicans manage him this season, where they fit him into the offense, who he guards on defense, whether he guards down low or he just takes the opposition's best player.
Yeah.
He has that defensive ability. And how many minutes he gets per game, whether they put a minutes restriction on him again and say, no, you're out for this portion.
I hope he's not super limited. I can see him playing 30 plus a game because he's going to be so important to the team. Although the new coach is Stan Van Gundy, we should mention.
Yeah.
I
was just about to say that.
I don't know how he feels about load management and what have you.
Yeah.
He might have commented on that.
He's
when
pretty
he was
traditional.
He is.
He doesn't like load management from what I understand.
Okay.
He's not a big fan. So, yeah, but it's Zion. Do you want to risk that asset?
I know.
That could be an owner's decision. That could go well over Stan Van Gundy's head. And it could just be like, no, you're sitting him.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what kind of minutes we're looking at from Zion this season. And then adding a guy like Steven Adams makes sense to me, having another physically imposing guy on the court. A lot of people are questioning the decision, especially with Zion's impact inside. but this is a completely new system for Steven Adams.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what kind of numbers he's going to put up and what kind of season he's going to have and whether he fits in to what the New Orleans Pelicans are trying to do.
Absolutely, because like at the end of the day, they could possibly trade him. Another team might like him. Yeah. He's a valuable piece. He just might not fit on this team, and people question the fit because of his lack of shooting. Does Zion need a big guy next to him? Can Zion not just be the big guy? And that's an outsider's perspective. It should be noted that David Griffin has recently been quoted as saying they envisioned Zion playing the 3 in the future. I don't necessarily want to pigeonhole him as a particular position or a number. Yeah. I think he just is his own guy. On the court. Just have him on the court. Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, just have your 5 best on the court.
And that's why when we're mentioning players and who they're guarding, it's the opposition's best attacking player or the opposition's worst attacking player.
Yeah.
You don't really have positions in today's NBA, and everyone tries to kind of put it into that perspective. It's easier to do when you're talking about certain players. He plays power forward or center. The easiest way to look at it is Zion can play anywhere on the court. You can have him anywhere on the court. He's going to impact winning. When you're looking at guys, going back to Phoenix, looking at guys like Chris Paul, he is your primary ball handler. Yeah. He's the one,
Absolutely.
He is the one. But 1 through 5 is kind of just where they sit on their offensive standing.
Yeah.
I can see Zion being anywhere on the court, whether it's outside or inside, so 3 or 4, and impacting winning. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter where you play.
I couldn't agree more. Just get him out there. Put Ingram next to him. If Ingram's your 4 and Zion's your 5, whatever. Yeah. It's a good front court. The other team has to match up with them.
I don't think having Zion at the 5 is good for his
not all the time. It's not sustainable.
And his health. Yeah. He's not big enough as far as his height to match up against.
It's asking a lot.
The guy I'd compare him to inside and say, well, that's a worry for me for his health would be a guy like Joel Embiid, who is a truck. Or
even a Jokic.
Yeah. Jokic is immovable. You put him in there and he just plants himself in the paint and you're not getting him out of there. So, yeah, I'd worry about Zion's long-term viability at 5. But yeah, I think just have him anywhere on the court other than there, and he's fine.
Yeah.
That's why I like the Steven Adams edition, because you can go, okay, put Steven Adams out there, and he can take care of Jokic or he can take care of Embiid, and then Zion can float around.
That's right.
So yeah, I like the Steven Adams edition. I just like Zion, full stop. I like Brandon Ingram. His offensive production is incredible, and defensively he was really good last season too. Definitely an improvement on his Lakers years.
23 years old. He shot almost 40% from 3 last year.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add, I hope he added some weight because he's a bit thin.
He's always been thin though.
Yeah.
I think every year he's added a couple of kilos. Pounds.
Pounds, kilos.
Yeah.
Do the math yourself.
Yeah, you can work that out. But yeah, the most intriguing piece for me on this Pelicans roster is Lonzo Ball.
Okay. Yeah. He's got a lot to take on this year. He doesn't have Drew Holiday sort of taking the reins of the offense, so to speak. Lonzo's going to be the guy this year.
Yeah.
And they did add Bledsoe and George Hill, although George Hill got traded, I think, to the Thunder.
Yeah.
He got shifted somewhere else.
Right.
But they still have Eric Bledsoe. And I don't like Eric Bledsoe, but he could make it work. I'm on record of saying Eric Bledsoe is not a great point guard, leader.
He works much better as a 6-man than he does as a starter. So we will see an improved Eric Bledsoe this season.
You think so?
I think so, yeah.
Well, he had a decent season last year. It's just I don't like his play style.
He's a good
like
spark
his
plug
attitude
off the bench. I didn't like him as a starter at Milwaukee.
Neither did I.
He didn't fit.
Or before that in Phoenix or in LA as a bench guy. Like I'm not sold on Eric Bledsoe at all. Like I sold stock on him a long time ago. I'm hard on Eric Bledsoe. I just think like when he got roasted by Terry Rozier, I was out.
That was enough.
I was way out.
Yeah. Okay. That's completely fair. That's completely fair. I just think he hasn't really had the situation to prove his worth.
Maybe.
Because he's not a starter. I wouldn't put him in a starter quality type of player. But he can come off the bench and put in really good minutes defensively, offensively. He'd probably be a really good plus minus off the bench. Playing against the second unit of the other team too, he'll definitely improve. Lonzo Ball is the key for New Orleans making the playoffs this season.
Yeah.
If he can be more consistent from three, if he can get to the line more often, they're going to be a much, much, much better team all round. And it'll make the guys around him better because teams have to start respecting Lonzo.
Absolutely.
And teams don't. Still.
Not right now.
Yeah.
He's a much better shooter now, but they still don't respect him.
Yeah. I think he just has that stigma from the Los Angeles days of that air ball. Yeah.
When he used to shoot sideways, basically.
Yeah.
That's there's a sign of disrespect that's going to come with that.
100%. Yeah. I think he's the key. If he can come out and put up career numbers, then New Orleans are a team to watch from the jump. They may take a lot of teams by surprise.
Yeah.
They have just so many question marks next to every player.
Absolutely.
What version of this guy are we going to get? Are we going to get All-Star Brandon Ingram, or are we going to get Laker Brandon Ingram? Are we going to get a better version of Lonzo, or are we going to get Laker Lonzo?
Or the same Lonzo, who knows?
Yeah, are we going to get Zion from Duke, from his high school mixtape? Or are we going to get Zion on a minutes restriction, who's coming out and putting up 22 points in 25 minutes kind of thing?
Yeah.
I like the Pelicans. I think they're really interesting. Like,
they're going to be fun to watch. Yeah. I would pay to watch them. I'd love to, like, if I was back in America, I'd love to watch a game of theirs. Just because Zion and Lonzo, I think I have a special connection. The lob threat between the two of them is very special. You don't see that very often. And Lonzo's so unselfish. He's going to try to find all his guys. But Zion and him have a special connection. I'm happy they play together.
It's like a throwback to Chris Paul and Blake Griffin.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a good comparison, actually.
Yeah. Just the athleticism is very similar. Lonzo's numbers, someone pointed this out to me. His numbers to where they are now, and I have a friend who'll back this up pretty hard, is comparable, if not identical, to John Stockton at the same point in their career. He is a Lonzo stan, but
it's not Sheldon, is it?
It is Sheldon. It's Sheldon.
I got you, Sheldon. I know he's the only Pelicans fan I know.
He seems to think that Lonzo has that career trajectory. I don't. I don't think he'll come close to.
If you imagine
John
he
Stockton.
led the all-time leading assist person at the end of his career, that'd be amazing.
Look, he can pass the ball, but he has other things to improve on to be effective in today's NBA. It's a much different game than when John Stockton was playing. So let's just roll that take back a little bit, Sheldon. But yeah, I think that I think Lonzo can be a serviceable point guard. He now has to fit into another offense. I think this is his fourth coach since even coming into the league. He's had 4 different coaches. So I'm curious to see what kind of production he can put up under Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah. He's going to give him, SVG is going to give him the keys.
Yeah.
And how he works with that is a big factor, maybe the biggest factor in the entire season for them. I have them in the playoffs. I think you probably do as well.
Yeah.
Sneaking in as the 8th.
I've got him anywhere from, I've got him in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I that's where I see them. I don't really have them in a spot because I think that those spots down there are so interchangeable.
Yeah.
That who knows what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, like when you're talking about the play-in, those teams at the very bottom, again, circling back to who's challenging the Lakers, the Pelicans might give them a scare in the first round, but the Pelicans also have to defend Anthony Davis and LeBron. That's a tall task.
To be fair, I like the Steven Adams on Anthony Davis matchup.
Okay. Interesting.
But I don't like Zion guarding LeBron for 40 minutes.
That's ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, it
takes a lot away from Zion offensively, that explosiveness.
I don't think they have anybody that would guard LeBron. They would have to be having Ingram on him a little bit. Josh Hart would
Probably
be,
Lonzo as well.
Yeah, it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah, and then you've got to bring in. I think they have to start JJ this season. That's the guy that I have starting over Josh Hart.
Love me some JJ.
JJ Redick, you can't lose him on the court, so it frees up a lot of space inside for the other guys there. And you hope you get a wondering eye from your defender if he's Zion.
Yeah,
and then you've got a free run to the rim, and that's kind of what I can see Stan Van Gundy trying to implement there. I can see JJ being a starter and playing, way more minutes this season.
To that point, actually, I'd like to see the Pelicans implement some of what Miami did last season with Bam and the handoff fakes, with Zion just basically going nope, and then turning and dribbling into a dunk possibly.
He hasn't shown a lot of his playmaking ability since he's been in the NBA.
He has it, but he hasn't shown it.
He hasn't shown it. He showed it a fair bit at Duke, linking up with RJ. There were a couple of full court passes that he ripped.
It's crazy.
He has a really good vision and a very good IQ on the offensive side of the ball. So I would like to see Stan Van Gundy implement a lot more of that playmaking ability at the top of the key or on the corner of the apron from Zion. Yeah. Similar to Bam Adebayo. Yeah, similar to that.
Very similar. I mean, he's not going to be Bam's. He's not going to have Bam's passing straight away, but I think that would work out for them. I mean, beyond the Pelicans, I don't see the Rockets are worth talking about a little bit because they made such a dramatic shift. They still have James Harden, who it's really hard to discount James Harden. That's where I have them in the play-in section, like the 8 through 11. I have them. I see them missing the playoffs, unfortunately. I just think they're going to blow it up. I really think Harden's going somewhere else. And Wall will be him and Wall and Cousins are going to be the best players on that team after Harden's gone.
Yeah.
And I don't like that sort of thing. I like Christian Wood, but I just don't see the Rockets doing that well this season. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's concerning looking at the Rockets roster and where they go from here. They've given up a fair bit over the last couple of seasons to make the team better, and James Harden has put a stop to it each time, which worries me because when are you ever going to get a guy happy if he's not happy with players like Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook?
Anyone
trying to make it work.
When's he going to be happy?
Yeah. I feel bad for Houston, but yeah, I think the only answer there would be to just start over, start from scratch.
They did manage to pick up Christian Wood, who you love.
I love Christian
a little bit more than I do, although I really like him.
His analytics are off the charts.
Yeah, he good piece to get.
Especially on a Pistons roster that was so bad last year.
He was a rose that grew out of concrete.
Yeah.
I think Christian Wood could have a breakout season. Like he's had
more so than last season.
Yeah,
but yeah, I agree with you.
He'll have starters minutes.
Yeah, he could be most improved.
Yeah,
he's right up there in that conversation, I think, this season. And depending on what the Rockets do offensively, they could start to move the ball a bit more with a new coach. It could be less of ISO ball for Harden, and they could start moving the ball around, giving other guys an opportunity. So I'm interested to see what they have.
I would totally expect a different style of play.
Yeah.
I still love PJ Tucker. I think he might get traded to a contender if this team starts to go south.
I agree.
Because that's the type of attitude he will have.
Yeah.
He'll say, I'm not playing for some bottom dweller, whatever the team is at the bottom of either conference. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to win. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the Daniel House thing that happened in the bubble. Like this team, I just don't like the makeup of it. And then you have that sort of storyline in there.
Just recap.
He was a very important piece, and then he got in trouble because he brought someone into the bubble, and he kind of got ostracized from the team a little bit because it felt like a bit of a betrayal.
Yeah, and
it just created chemistry issues. It could have led to the ultimate, fairly quick exit they had in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's teams that were there for business.
Yeah.
And there's other teams that didn't take it that seriously, and the Rockets were one of them. They just...
Not serious enough.
They didn't take it seriously. It was just, you've got to be switched on the whole time you're in a situation like that because there are other guys there who want it more. And
exactly.
I think it showed at the end of the day that, they just weren't they weren't that quality a team, and
They really weren't.
I'm really interested to see what kind of lineup they run out with. Do they even start John Wall? Like, how much is John Wall going to play into that roster? It's interesting to me to look at the amount of guys they have who can play the 4 and the 5. Where are they going to go with that? Does PJ hold on to his spot? PJ Tucker? Does PJ Tucker hold on to his spot? Do they start DeMarcus Cousins? Do they start Christian Wood? Do they move Christian Wood to the 4? Do they play Cousins at the 5? Does PJ come off the bench? There's a lot of switchability in and around that roster. And the other guy off the bench who I feel could make a huge impact is Chris Clemens.
I like him, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a bit undersized, but he's got heart. He's a great player.
And he's got range, which you really like coming off the bench, a guy that you have to guard full court pretty much to stop him from shooting. Look, it's an interesting roster. I like David Nwaba defensively. I'm curious to see what kind of season he has, whether they even bring him in.
I honestly don't know much about David Nwaba. It's interesting you bring him up.
Athletic and very good defensively.
Okay.
That's pretty much it for David Nwaba.
He's an athlete. Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
They have getting rid of
Eric Gordon.
I kind of like Eric Gordon, but he's also
overpaid.
Been hit or miss, overpaid a little bit. Yeah. They have an interesting roster. I think it's going to get blown up. I just look at this and I go, this doesn't look like it's heading anywhere great.
Yeah, I think they added a lot of pieces in the hope that James Harden would be like, oh yeah, they've done something.
Cousins.
They've done something here. If DeMarcus Cousins can recapture the Kings form, they're there.
They'd be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I like Cousins as a Kings player. I didn't like Cousins as anything post Achilles. Like nothing on him.
He was pretty good on the Pelicans.
Yeah, he was.
So he wasn't bad on the Pelicans, but that was never going to work, having Cousins and Davis. AD. It's just that was a mess. But yeah, I like the moves that they made this offseason. But I don't think it's enough to keep Harden on the roster, nor should it be. I think that they need to blow it up now, take what they can get for Harden, cash in on their most valuable asset, and try and hit a hard reset. Maybe try get off some of those ugly contracts like Eric Gordon.
I just think even from an attitude side of thing here, like DeMarcus Cousins and James Harden are a bit malcontent. They're a bit. They can get up to some chicanery with their attitude towards various things. John Wall is fairly professional. PJ Tucker to me is a consummate professional, but I just don't like the mix here. I'm sorry, Rockets fans. It's just, this doesn't look good this year. But the silver lining is that they might be able to move their pieces, get some good stuff back for Harden, if that's what they do. Or they might find some random trade that ends up making them better and keeping Harden. So don't know what's really going to happen there.
Yeah.
A lot of uncertainty.
There's so much up in the air with that Houston roster. Hard reset is the answer for me.
It feels like it.
Just hit a hard reset and go again. I can see them falling into the play-in. They're going to struggle to make the playoffs because we don't know what we're going to get with John Wall.
Yeah.
I like the moves they made. If they can implement the right offense, then they're a chance of playing some really good basketball.
No doubt.
They've added a lot of good players. So it just really depends on those question mark guys like DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wrapping up here, the bottom of the West. Like, if you want to start at the very bottom, you have the Thunder, the Kings, and the Timberwolves. Not really concerned with them at all. Barring some miracle, they're not making the playoffs or even the play-in. The Spurs are kind of in a weird position. They're kind of they're like the Charlotte Hornets East right now.
Man,
they're not good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not good enough to tank. I mean, they're not bad enough to tank. So
you'd think they just trade. They kind of seem
Aldridge
to be,
especially.
Yeah, they seem to be in this weird holding pattern where they're like, we have these guys, but we don't really want to get rid of them because we might still they're not going to win.
Well, the thing is, they have Popovich. To me, if Popovich is not the coach, then it's a different direction. But right now, it's like, oh, Pop's still here. Let's try to win for Pop, and that's fine. It's a respect thing. He's given you 20 plus years of amazing coaching and basketball acumen.
This could be his last season as the head coach of the Spurs.
I think so.
Possibly retirement would be the answer for Pop. And
Yeah.
maybe he just goes into US basketball and just coaches there every couple of
Or
times
even
a
just
year.
as a consultant.
Yeah, maybe an operations kind of guy, like a
with the
president.
Spurs or USA.
Yeah. I think that he is at the tail end of his coaching career
Just
anyway.
run his course,
so,
man.
yeah, look, I like Greg Popovich, and I hope the Spurs send him out right. The only other team I'd have to watch in the West is the Grizzlies. They are
Okay.
Ja Morant, and I really like Ja.
Sick.
Yeah, I really like Ja, and I hope that the Grizzlies can make a couple of moves, probably via trade, to
get some
improve
vets.
that roster.
Yeah.
Because it's just a bit, it's a bit meh.
It's a bit green.
Yeah, there's
think-
Valanciunas, who's a good trade piece if they can move him to the right roster.
Raptors fan favorite. We miss him.
Really,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, we don't regret the trade.
yeah.
I say we as if I was in the room with Masai making the move.
Yeah.
We don't regret the trade, but JV was a fan favorite, man.
Yeah, okay.
I have to bring this up. I'm sorry. He carried us through a bit of that Miami series back in 2016.
Yeah.
It was him versus Whiteside, and he was giving Whiteside the business.
He tortures us every time we play him. He loves playing against
He's
Miami.
just big, man.
He still gets us. Even with Bam guarding him, he's hard to
He's
to
a
stop.
load.
Yeah.
But
Pause.
the other team was the Jazz. I'm not really concerned with the Jazz. The
Nah,
thing is, Mitchell got paid.
I wouldn't even have him that high, man.
I have him as
I'm
11.
worried.
You're saying too high?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm worried about the Jazz this season. They haven't done anything. Aging roster. I think Mitchell needs more pieces around him. He probably needs a point guard, and Mike Conley is not the answer there.
They're betting on continuity, and it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah.
Bogdanovich will be healthy again. I
Yeah.
really
I like
him as a player,
Bogdanovich too,
but
yeah. They could surprise me. I'm worried that the Jazz haven't done anything to improve the roster, whereas everyone in the West has kind of shuffled and gone, well, we need to do something.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm worried about the Jazz.
I think they're going to shift Gobert. I think he's going somewhere else.
I think he'll be traded, yeah.
Because
They're going to cash in on it.
Yeah, his contract is something like 25 plus million per year right now, I believe.
Yeah, and he's off contract. So at the end of
he's
this
expendable
season.
right now.
Yep.
They kind of need to go in a different direction with him, even though his numbers support him being one of the most important centers, big men in the league defensively.
Yeah. It's the offensive side of the ball that you need.
Yeah.
You need your center to go both ways. You need a two-way center. So you'd probably be looking in the draft for an improvement there. So yeah, I can see them cashing in on someone up the top and trying to land one of the top guys in this year's draft. There's a couple of good centers in this year's draft. So yeah, I can see them cashing in on Gobert too.
Yeah, if not a center, just another prospect, like a wing guy or someone to put with Mitchell. They need some youth in there.
Well,
to
yeah,
get a bit better.
the issue is Conley's contract too, stopping them from making a big move.
He's only paid $34 million a year.
Yeah.
No biggie.
Yeah, and people say that Hayward's the worst contract in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, Conley's not a bad contract, but like, Joe Ingles should
It's
be
not
running
good.
the point for them.
Yeah, by all means. I said earlier in the previous podcast, Davis Bertans needs 40 minutes a game. Jingle and Joe Ingles needs 50 minutes a game.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense, and it needs to happen.
Yeah, Jingles is...
Jingle
Man,
juice.
the metrics love him too. His plus minus is through the roof.
He's must-see TV.
Yeah. As soon as he goes to the left, that pass is coming and there's nothing you can do about it
Who's that unathletic and that fascinating and spectacular?
at the same time. He's
Nobody.
incredible. No, he's amazing.
Another love fest from
Yeah.
Mac and Josh.
Yep.
But that was the West. Really, the bottom is not that exciting. Although
Yeah.
the Grizzlies, if they make a move, they could sneak in there in the play-in tournament.
The other guy I really like on the Grizzlies roster is Jaren Jackson. If he can take the next step in
The
his
leap.
career, the leap, then we're looking at a really good roster over there. And it's all about, having the confidence to take more shots. And I think Ja Morant's a guy that can encourage you guys around him to be more active and be more, willing to take those shots.
Yeah.
So I like their roster. I, again, would like to see them make a couple more moves, possibly pick up some catch and shoot guys to put around
Yeah.
Ja. But yeah, good roster. They're the dark horse for me to make the playoffs.
Thing is, it's a good roster. It's in the West, maybe not good enough, but it depends on injuries. Like every year you see injuries affect one team or another that you expected to be so much better. They fall out, another team falls into place with that spot. So the Grizzlies are a good candidate if they stay healthy. They hit the lottery really well with Ja Morant. He's a phenomenal floor leader. And Triple J, if he takes a step up, that's a big move for them.
Yeah.
Potential playoffs, but play-in wise, they'd have some tough matchups.
To summarize in the West, who do you think, if anyone, will beat the Lakers?
Dallas is the biggest challenger, although I'd like to see the Nuggets. I really like watching them play. I don't think the Clippers are going to beat the Lakers, even though Kawhi has special ability and could take over a series or two. I got the Mavs or the Nuggets. There's no one else that really...
The only other team that intrigues me, and there's a lot of question marks, is Phoenix.
Right.
If DeAndre Ayton can come in and put up some career numbers, start averaging more points, consistently hitting a jump shot, they change that offense a little bit with Chris Paul there. They could be the other team I could see challenging the Lakers,
maybe
beating
make
the
one
Lakers.
More move if they're
Correct.
really keen.
Yeah. I can see them making a couple more moves to try and improve. But yeah, it has to be the Mavericks as the only other team that can challenge them because you can't stop Luka. But then have they got the defensive ability to stop LeBron and AD? So yeah, it's the Lakers league.
It really is. Like it's not as pronounced as when the Warriors were running things a couple of years ago, but it's close. The bubble showed that their size is overwhelming. LeBron and Davis are phenomenal together.
Yeah.
They've done well to put that roster together.
As fun as it is to talk about all these hypotheticals, there's no one beating the Lakers.
That's it. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I think that sums it up, Matt. Have you got any other homers for Toronto?
Nah. The Raptors are what they are this season. I expect Siakam to bounce back from the bubble. How about you in Miami?
I think Bam Adebayo is going to average a triple-double. And that'll do us for episode 3 of the Shootaround Podcast.
That's not happening.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Yes.
For episode 4.
Episode 4.
Follow us on all the socials. Make sure you interact with us on all of our socials as well. We're happy to reach out, happy to have a chat. So yeah, hit us up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Catch you next week.
Goodbye.